Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Of course, I am your host, BMR. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Brunch, or actually Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, and the Blondes, and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker Radio, Subspace Radio, KPNL Radio, and wherever podcasts are found. Thank you so much for that. If you like our content and would like to help support the channel, of course, the super chat is always open. That's a great way to help support everything we all do. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All social media platforms are available. I got a fan favorite returning, Varla Ventura. We're going to get into some. Actually, it's December 7th, so we're starting Christmas a little early with some spooky Christmas ghosts, goblins, all sorts of weirdness with Varla. So thanks for that. And don't forget our scheduled list of events and things that we got happening throughout the week. Of course, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch. You can find Tex and Brandy on Monday, 7 Central and 8 o'clock in the East. Tuesday night, Beyond BMR, myself and Krista, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock in the East. Wednesday on Texas Front Porch, the Diva Dimension. That takes place 9 Central, 10 in the East. After that, Thursday, right back here with Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and Tex, 12 Central, 1 in the East. The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast tonight, 9 o'clock. In the East, 8 Central. Check them out tonight. They're also on Fridays. If you need a little more woo, the Blondes and Booze bring it Fridays, 8 Central, 9 in the East. And Tex has been doing something for a while now with Miss Danielle Diva on Texas Front Porch. Infamous Minds. Infamous Minds is true crime. It's starting to take off. And if you like true crime, Tex and Miss Diva do a fantastic job. And I got to tell you guys, they put a lot of work and effort into that because they do a lot of research on these serial killers and they spend time into it. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And in fact, while I'm talking about Tex, he is getting close to the 5,000 subscriber milestone. He's about $190 away, 190 away. If you have not subscribed already, subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. Let's get Tex to 5,000 Christmas Eve. So when he wakes up, Santa pays him the 5,000 subscribers. That would be awesome. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch, YouTube. 190 away from 5,000. So let's do that. Also, we got some other things going on, as you know. It's a little early for this, but you know, we're all putting together, along with Anita Collier. We're going to be doing a conference coming up in June. I know it's December and you don't want to hear about conferences when it's Christmas time, but you know, we've got June 7th and 8th, 2024, the Alabama Bigfoot Conference we're putting together again with this Anita Collier. Tex Wesson is our host. The speaker lineup: Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and of course, yours truly, BMR. Tickets are now on sale, $30 online, $35 at the door. That's in the Anderson Performing Arts Center. So again, you'll be seeing more of these flyers as the months roll on. So something a little early for you guys to check into as the months roll past. Also, I want to thank everybody for buying my book, True Cryptid Encounters. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1, found on Amazon. Now, I got to tell you guys, you got to buy it today if you want to get in time for Christmas to avoid those additional shipping charges. You know, standard rates still apply, but you know, if you want in time to give Cryptid Encounters to a loved one, you better get it on the horn after this show. Buy it on Amazon. The link is in this video. The link's on my YouTube page. Thank you for that, of course. And for those of you that have bought it, I do appreciate it. I do thank you. And when Amazon comes calling, you know what? I just found this out not too long ago. It's all analytics these days. So if you leave a review Right now, it's currently still holding strong, 5 out of 5 stars. Yes, I have to say that. But if you think it's worth 1 star, well, drop a 1 star. It's more important that you leave an analytic. They'll push sales for that. I do greatly appreciate each and every one of you for buying it. I appreciate y'all for subscribing, coming on in. Texas Front Porch, subscribe. The Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe. Thank you ever so much. With that being said, in Studio B, of course, I have Tex waiting, and I'm going to pull out Tex here. Hello, good afternoon, Tex.
Howdy.
You know, I gotta tell you, every time I see you, I gotta take a second look. You're dwindling away, my friend. You're dwindling away.
Man, I'll tell you what, I feel great, and of course it's a journey,
I'm sure you got your ups and downs, man.
Yeah, I've lost 60 pounds. So,
well, I'm proud of you, man. And I got to tell you,
thank you.
Yeah, I really am. I'm genuine when I say that. And you look great. I mean, you've always looked good to me. I've known you for a long time now, but yeah, I commend you for that because I don't know that I'd have done that. I just saw something on TV. Well, I'm not going to get into it. We can talk later. But I'm like, wow, Tex had to go through that. I cringe. And, I have a weak stomach, so to speak. No pun intended, of course. But, we got a treat tonight. Varla Ventura, she's becoming a fan favorite. She's a staple around here now, her third time on the show. And you know what? I'm going to have Varla on every 2 or 3 months just because she provides something different. She's fresh. She's an author herself, several books. The links will be provided after the show for Varla.
And she's absolutely beautiful, by the way.
Varla is absolutely beautiful.
She is.
I was supposed to meet
I've
her.
got to have her on my show. Yeah, I can't let you so-called
I get all the eye candy, it seems, Taz.
I know you do.
But I do have to say this though. I never met her in person. I met her through the internet watching Spaced Out Radio. And I've been watching every time Spaced Out Radio is on, I make sure that I tune into Varla because I love Varla. And I waited like 2 years to invite her on the show because I guess I'm just bashful that way. I don't know.
I am not.
Well,
I am not.
Varla's got a lot of work being done at her house. There's pounding going on. There's things going on. So I don't want to waste any more time. So I'm going to bring up the lovely Varla Ventura.
Hello.
Hi, Varla.
You can actually. Oh, I just noticed in the background. So all the hammering and stuff, like some of my pictures have gone crooked back there. I just noticed that.
Oh my God! I thought.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh, I should have said I did it on purpose, but I didn't.
You know what I was thinking? If you would have been on mute and as we would have watched the show, because I got to tell you, on our shows, a lot of weird things happen. That'd have been so cool if you would have been on mute. No one knew that work was going on, and the picture started moving
or fell off the wall. Which several things have fallen off the wall at random. So I'm running a big risk here, burning candles. But I can't. It's one of my rituals whenever I do any interview. I always pull a tarot card and do candles before, just because I like to set the mood for myself.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, being a man, I say when I do a show, and I'm in darkness here, I got my Christmas lights up already, and I'm kind of ticked off because I'm looking straight ahead, and I've got lights all over. You guys can't see them because they're like in front of me. My top white and blue lights just went out 3 minutes ago.
Oh.
So, and it's bugging the hell out of me right now. So after this show, I'm immediately going to Walgreens and buying another string.
Oh, they're probably going to go on right after the show.
Yeah, they probably will. But I do want to thank you for taking time out of coming on the show. And
yeah, and I want to apologize to the listeners in advance if you hear strange noises. It might be paranormal, but if it's coming from my end, I am having work done that was delayed on my house, and there's nothing I can do about it. So thank you for accommodating me anyway. And if it gets really bad, you can kick me off.
Well, I got to tell you what's worse is somebody that has a crappy internet connection where you can't hear every other word, or there's somebody where you have to do it by phone and hold your phone to the micro. I've done that, and I got to tell you, it's really
There were two places that I could have gone. One was a friend's house who has terrible internet, and the other is a library, which has very iffy internet, but they have private rooms. And I thought, what's worse? Having the stress of the internet not like connecting, because I have wonderful internet at home, but of course, but it's also lunch hour here, so I think we'll be okay. Because yesterday they took a break around this time, so
no, I think we'll be fine. Again, thanks for coming on. I'm more than happy to accommodate you. And I think right now everything's perfect. So for those, we're gonna get into a little creepy Christmas stories today. But for everyone that don't know, you're an author and you're very successful. And for those that for the first time meeting you, why don't you just give them a little background and we'll get on with it.
Yeah, so I've written several books. I think I have 6 books out. I just signed a contract for another one, so that's exciting. That will be coming out in 2025, though, so that we've got a ways to go before we even have a pre-order for that one. But always exciting to be working on that. My books are all, first couple books I did, I mean, I'm just a lover of the strange. I'm the person at the party that would pull out the odd facts or, always just like devoured the Ripley's Believe It or Not and, read Stephen King far too young and had a lot of strong interest in Tales from the Crypt as a kid. And so I kind of reached a point where I was actually doing some editorial work for a book publisher. And I was like, I have an idea, it's very young at the time. And so I have an idea. What if we had like this book that was kind of more like Halloween-y and, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, it could just be all this weird stuff in one book. And that was the Book of the Bizarre. And that was in 2000. And I just looked at the date the other day. I want to say it was 2003. It's been almost 20 years, I think, since that came out. And that one did well. And so that kind of launched me into this pretty successful career with that publisher. I'm on my most recent book was a few years ago. It was 2018. So my last 2 books, Varla Ventura's Paranormal Parlor, which is all kinds of paranormal history and seances, haunted places, my own paranormal stories, paranormal experiences of others, and just some like weird death facts thrown in there for fun. And then I also write a lot about the fairy kingdom. So the book before that was Fairies, Pukas, and Changelings. And I write about banshees and werewolves. And I'm particularly interested in sort of like the folkloric history. So some of the early authors who were bringing these stories to us and what was their deal. What were their biases? What was their backstory? Were they believers? Had they had experiences? So that's kind of how I came to. I'm just lucky enough that I've been able to work primarily on my own books, and then I also help other people with their books as an editor, and especially love working on weird books, occult books, things like that. So.
See, Tex, I told you she fits right in with the weirdness.
Well, and it's funny. We're sitting here talking about books, and it just seems like lately everybody and their dog that's on YouTube has written a book. And I'm no different. I am no different.
Good for you.
Me and Danielle Diva actually have a true crime book coming out probably January, February.
Oh, nice.
And I'm in the middle of writing my own book that it's a fictional story, but it's inspired by my own true account with a dog man.
Ooh, nice.
And so I have no idea how far I am. I had no idea how many words I've written. I don't know anything. And I am the worst person about grammar in the world. And
so I actually work with adults, and I work with a lot of teens and do like some different writing groups. And one of the things that we talked about really recently, and I kind of bring in like lessons that I feel like I also need to learn. And I was actually reading through, I don't know if you're familiar that with Stephen King has a book called On Writing, and it's a book all about writing. It's not about his books, although they enter into that, but it's his writing advice. And let's face it, the guy can write, and he's got formulas and he's got methods. But one of the things he talked about was kind of, and other writing, other famous writers have talked about this kind of like, you make a first draft and you don't worry about your grammar, and you don't worry if you're really if you really have compelling dialogue, and you really have all this. Now this is more for fiction writing, but I think it can apply to any kind of writing. You get the draft out there, because and then what he says is you put it in a drawer and you leave it alone, and you leave it alone. He recommends a minimum of 6 weeks. But ideally, you're already moved on to something else when you go back to it, and then you look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And I love that, because I think for myself, one of the things I struggle with is the completion of that first draft before I start going back and nitpicking things. So I thought that was really good advice, and something that I'm going to try with my next book is to just try and get beginning to end, and then go back through and sort of really I mean, there's always so many drafts. Like, it's totally okay to, and I think, editors can help with grammar. Editors can't help you with your, an editor can't tell your story for you.
Right. And one of my big issues is I write just like I talk. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my writing has an accent. And so I don't want to lose that.
No.
And I talked to somebody that had written a book and then sent it to it, and it was kind of the same way. And when they sent it back, everything had changed. It sounded like a Yankee had written it. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want my book to come back and sound like Rob. It just, it it needs to sound like the old boy's from Texas. He's an old country boy. And, but that's exactly how I written it. And I'm the way I'm writing, and I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just, I'm telling the story in my head, and I'm just writing it as it goes, and I'm using words that I'm sitting there and I'm like telling the story to somebody, and I'm just writing it as it comes into my head,
I was recently working with a woman who's telling her own life story, and her story is just absolutely incredible. And she had an editor that she worked with who did not do her, did her quite a disservice, because they tried to rewrite, and in the rewriting process lost the best part about it, which is her voice, which means she repeats adjectives. She repeats little, little sayings. They're repeated in the writing because that's how she talks. Right. And I have worked really hard to restore all of that, because to me, that's the charm. And when I read it, I can hear her Bostonian accent while I'm reading things that happen in it. And it can be difficult, but I think if you just trust your instincts, trust your instincts, and then find the right editor to give it an outside perspective, but not somebody who's gonna, some editors are failed writers. Not all editors, and as an editor myself, I have tremendous respect for editors, but some editors are failed writers, and they want their own voice to be in your book, and that's not how it should be.
That's just doing a disservice to the author. They're taking advantage of you and such, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's subconscious. Like, people don't even realize they're doing it. And of course, like some, editors at book publishers, they have like a thing they're into. Like, someone might be really into memoir, or someone might be really into the occult, or so they're going to have taste, and they are sort of like that's part of their job, is to choose things that they think are cool, that they think other people will read. But there's a difference between that and an editor who would be like a developmental editor who would get in and kind of mess around with your work. That is a person that you need to have a really good trusting relationship with. Sometimes the best thing to do is have a couple of outside readers just make comments, and then you hire somebody to do sort of what I would say is like a light edit, which is just to correct really poor, like any like really egregious errors, but so I mean, we all mix metaphor. It's just, if it's conversational, like that will come across. So
and
and I'm always everybody says I'm always coming up with these somebody called them Texisms, I mean, it's
yeah, that's great. Well, you've got, what do we say, almost 5,000 subscribers.
yes.
So you got at least 5,000 people who love those Texisms. So
Right.
you don't want to take that out. They don't want to read a book by generic Joe. They want to read a book by you. So
I think that's a great point, Varla. I was thinking the same thing, Varla, when Tex, you're talking. I'm like, Tex, your first book sales are going to be derived from your YouTube followers, just kind of like mine was. And the thing, and we're not talking about us, three of us authors writing, right? So everybody listening, I got one quick point which I'm going to use though, and this is Jason McLean's a writer, an author friend of ours. I talked to him like 2 or 3 times when I first started my first book. And now that I have you, Varla, as well, what I'm going to do better on my second one around is reach out to people like yourself and others and get more, not so much thoughts on writing your book, but how to price it, how to write it more creatively or more editing. Because I did it all by myself.
I love your cover. It's like one of my favorite book covers ever.
Oh,
I love that cover.
Well,
it's so pulp. It's so like
it makes you want to buy it.
Yes,
and that is courtesy of Jason McLean.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love it.
And he also did some light editing for me. But my thing is, when I did it, I kind of did 90% of it alone.
Yeah.
Because you just don't want to bug. I'm one of these guys who like to bug people. But with that being said, I'm going to bug a few more people, and I'll be bugging you too here in the upcoming months, Varla. So
great.
Okay. So with that being said, thanks everybody for bearing with us. Talk shop.
The writing process. Yes, this is not master class.
So Varla, what I love about you is you do have a lot of different experience, a lot of different stories, a variety of books. I think the very first show we talked mermaids, and I figured, and we talked.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that one.
Yeah, and we talked to Halloween. We talked goblins and ghosts, but now we have Christmas time. It's one of my favorite months, favorite times of year. It's December 7th. Christmas time was here. I was driving in my car the day after Halloween. Everybody. And I get in my vehicle. I'm driving wherever I'm driving, and I hear Johnny Mathis, the Christmas song. Right after, I don't even have my pumpkins off the porch yet. And here I'm, it's so.
I still don't have my pumpkins off the porch.
I figured you don't. So what is it? So reflecting back, what do you think? What are some things about Christmas for our audience that you find to be kind of haunting or chilling? Because after all, this is kind of a creepy type of show. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I do hear that a lot. It's like, the Halloween stuff's been moved to the discount section, and we're already getting, Christmas lights in the corners, well before Halloween's even taken place. But what's particularly delightful for us fans of Halloween is that Christmas time it's associated with this like, a lot of like beauty and light and joy and magic, but there's also a lot of trickery and mischief. There's quite a bit of darkness, and it really is the darkest time of year, right? We're entering into the shortest days of the year. And so there's a wonderful embracing of the darkness. And there are quite a few stories of characters and creatures out there that are sort of roaming the nights. But one of the things that I found to be kind of the most startling for me, and I've known about I mean, when I lived in San Francisco many years ago, there was a bar that did a Krampus Nacht, and they would have a big party every. I think it's December 6th. This is Krampus Nacht, which was last night, 5th or 6th. I think it's the 6th, and they'd have this big party, and that was where I first kind of had heard about Krampus. Was this sort of like antidote to the cheery Santa Claus, right? This sort of demon-like, monstery beast that roams the streets and punishes children and actually like steals children and puts them in his sack and all kinds of sort of, we have like a little tiny bit of that today with the idea of, getting coal in your stockings or being naughty or nice. But he would appear, especially in like Austria and Germany, he would appear sort of as like Saint Nicholas was the good guy. It was, good cop, bad cop, right? Like Saint Nicholas was the good guy and Krampus was pulling up the rear and was kind of there to terrify children. And there's quite a few little beasties like that. But one of the things that really surprised me, so there's quite a few creatures, and we can get into all those like wonderful cryptids. But I was working on the book, my Paranormal Parlor book, and there's an author that we associate very much with this time of year, and he's sort of the king of Christmas ghosts, and that's Charles Dickens. So the Christmas story, of course, is a ghost story, right? That is completely and utterly a ghost story. And it's actually a big part of it was very popular in Victorian times to tell ghost stories around Christmas. So, of course, knowing this story of, this horrifying ghost of, Marley, who's got chains and he's sort of like in purgatory and he's trying to teach these lessons. So I knew about that ghost story, but I actually discovered that Charles Dickens every year would put out a Christmas journal. So he wrote a journal that he self-published. People who disparage self-publishing, Charles Dickens was like the original self-publisher. So he put out this, it was sort of like a pamphlet. It was called All Year Round. And then he always did a Christmas edition. And every year, the Christmas edition, it was a ghost story. So Christmas Carol was kind of turned into a novel and was kind of his big hit, right? There's the hammering, if you can hear that.
Hey, I tell you what, it's fine. Continue on.
Okay. All right. We can always mute me and go to someone else. Anyway, so yeah, he wrote this one that was called I believe it was called The House of 1892 or something, but I call it The Haunted House, Charles Dickens' Haunted House. And he writes, basically, he set this up. This kind of ties in with writing also, but he set it up so that he created a fictional haunted house. And then he assigned rooms to all of his favorite writers at the time and asked them to embody the ghost of that room. And so it was sort of this decrepit old mansion. And so the story starts out exactly like all of your favorite ghost stories. Against my better judgment, I decided to let this moldy old house that was close to the sea, just like totally creepy. And in it, there's, all of the bells for all the servants and, one's to the captain's room and one's to the ladies' room and lady of the house, I mean. And then so you had your servants would know who was ringing the bells. So he gets all of these writers, including Wilkie Collins, who is known for writing The Woman in White, which is like one of the first stage plays about a ghost, involves a ghost. The Queen's favorite poet, Ruth McHenry Stewart. She writes a story, and her story is actually all in poem. And so anyway, it's this collection of ghost stories, and these are all fictional, but it's this sort of like ghost experiment. And in reading about this, he writes some introductory material, and he talks about the 12 nights of Christmas or the 12 days of Christmas being a time of high magic. Not just being a time of cheer and, gift giving, but a time of high magic. In fact, he talks about, and I've read this in other kind of like turn of the century authors have talked about this thing that happens on Christmas Eve. If you are out too late at night on Christmas Eve, you're out after dark and you go to draw water from your well, you may draw blood rather than water. You may hear animals talk like barn animals who don't like the way they're being treated. You may hear all kinds of cackling, and there are sort of, bonfires where trolls and witches are. It's a lot of the descriptions are very much like what we associate with a very traditional Halloween, that it's a dark time. There's fires burning, there's witches afoot, but this idea of the veil being so thin that you might actually stumble into something that you'll not ever be able to unsee is so delightfully terrifying, because it's not just, okay, I'm going to burn this candle and, try and bring in the light of the season. It's actually like, you could die. Like, you could be serving, blood for dinner. Like, there's there's some cautionary stuff like, hey, what are you doing out on Christmas Eve at the bar anyway? But there's also just this idea of something that we talk about in the Celtic Wheel of the Year with Halloween, Samhain being actually the turning point in the witches' New Year. We talk about that, but if you think about this time between that, the end of October and mid to late December, it really is the darkest time of year. And there really are all kinds of things out there that can do you harm. And there's a lot more time for them to lurk because it's darker earlier.
5 p.m. It's starting to get dark. I don't know about Texas.
Yeah, I don't know about Texas.
Oh yeah. Varla, where are you out of anyway?
Right. I live in Minnesota now. So I live near St. Paul. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, but I'm originally from San Francisco. So, the darkness and the winter creatures this far north are definitely more terrifying. San Francisco is the same weather year round. So.
Well, Minnesota's got a lot of creepy stuff, eh?
Yeah, a lot of large patches of unexplored woods in Minnesota.
Yeah,
it's a spooky state, don't you know?
for sure.
Well, when and I really didn't think about this till you started talking about the whole, days being shorter and all this kind of stuff. But if you think about it, I think a cold, dark night, just in the statement of that, a cold, dark night is creepier than it was a warm summer night.
Yeah, or even like a beautiful fall afternoon, right? Yeah. Like we have all the gorgeous colors of the fall, but once those leaves are gone, it's stark. Now you're in the territory of, the Icelandic Christmas witch, who basically can come out and murder you in the middle of the night if you're out too late. Now, certainly from an anthropological point of view, you could say, oh, well, this is a way of keeping people from getting hypothermia. But I don't love the idea of dismissing traditional belief systems for practical reasons. I think they exist because there's truth in them. And I certainly am not going to test the theory about the Icelandic Christmas witch on Christmas Eve or any of the nights leading up. Thank you very much. I will take that for truth.
Cannot say the same. I absolutely love the fall and winter and very, very early spring are my favorite times to be out in the field. And, I love a good, cold, dark night. I absolutely love it. We're out there, miles away from anything and, especially in an active cryptid area, it just seems like, and not to mention that from a research standpoint, winter is I think an easier time and a better time to be out there because the noise pollution is down, not because of man-made stuff. Insects are doing.
Really quickly, I got something in my eye blurring my vision. I don't know what the heck it is. So Tex, You guys continue on. I gotta take care of this.
Okay.
I got it.
I know.
We got this, no problem. But from a research standpoint, it's actually a better time. And you've got hammering, and I've got vacuuming.
Hey, it's very realistic. People know this is a live show.
Yeah, we are everyday people here.
Yes,
everyday
yes. We have
people.
everyday problems.
But it if you think about it, you can hear things more clearly. People talk about it being crisp, and I think it's because every sound, you have so much, like in the spring and summer, you have so much, so many insects and stuff, and
oh yeah, it's
arguably
quieter.
more animals that are active at night.
Definitely.
But during the winter, it's easier to pick out the sounds that are different.
Yeah, well, and here we get so much snow too. There's like another kind of element of especially right after a snowfall or during a snowfall, the softness and the there's almost like a vacuum of sound that sort of takes place. And there's actually I just started hearing a great horned owl right in my neighborhood. And it's just the ultimate spooky owl. It's like the one that's on all the Halloween tracks, the ultimate spooky owl. And it's always right after dark time. And there's other, there's a surprising amount of birds that still, chirp in the middle of, sub-zero weather here. But by and large, you don't have that kind of constant hum. And I also think, it deters humans somewhat as well. So if you can get out into a place that's, a little further from an urban area, and you really can kind of get into, you don't encounter as many people. You can hear your own footsteps and things like that so much more audibly. And so I do think, and I think if I were a cryptid of any kind, or any kind of magical creature that sort of lives beyond the veil, I think I would come out more so at those times because, humans are very destructive, and you even go back into I have a whole book all about different, creatures that kind of fall under the fairy kingdom. And of all of the creatures, especially with leprechauns, every leprechaun story, there's some sort of horrible violence. There's always some human that is just tying them up and trying to trap them so they can get this magic pot of gold or the magic purse of gold. And it's this recurring theme of real abuse toward this otherwise, harmless and kind of very much the kind of introverted creature. They sort of like to keep to themselves, and so they're a little elusive. But this idea of we as humans constantly want to, if we don't get a photo, we want to get we want to get something. We're always trying to get something from this other realm rather than just observe it. And of course we're looking for experiences and we want to have our evidence, but I quite like the lack of hard evidence. I'm totally okay with that. I feel that, I think maybe there's more talk about people having, for example, paranormal encounters. And I love the sharing of stories and people calling in and sharing their stories and talking to one another and feeling comfortable. Well, I had this thing happen, whether it's with a Bigfoot, or it's a UFO, or it's another kind of cryptid, or it's a supernatural, like a ghost or something. I love the shared culture that exists there. And I also love that they're really sure, there's instruments that exist to measure things, but it's really not hard evidence. Your evidence is in your own experience, and you have to trust others. And it's a very unique aspect, I think, of the paranormal world and the paranormal community. you can present your opinion and your own experiences, but there's not, there's no lab report you can point to. And because of that, it really allows us to share more. And I think that's the secret, right? That's the secret of the fairy time or the other world or the kind of lacking of time. That's the secret, that there is no way to really quantify it if you're looking at it in a human 24-hour clock, 365 days. If you're looking at it like that in that linear fashion, you'll never capture it. You just won't. But if you look beyond and you start to accept a different way of communicating and a different way of accepting and a different way of learning, I think that maybe it's not a different way. Maybe it's like our original way. We're just, we're lost from it. I think that is your closest chance of having an encounter of any kind.
It's, and I've been out in the field every time, all times a year, but and Penny brought a good point. In Texas, summertime is miserable to be out anywhere. Mosquitoes are big as bats down here, and you got ticks and the heat, humidity and everything. But I wouldn't be surprised. And I need, what? Maybe we need to look into this. When are the more aggressive or what I call waspy cryptid encounters? What time of year?
Mm.
And I wonder if in the summer, if these things are dealing with all these other things,
all the other factors.
Yeah. If they're, well, damn it, they're just in a bad mood and a bit grumpy. And here you are wandering around in their damn living room, and they just don't appreciate it. So they're a little on the grumpy side during the summer.
Yeah, the more aggressive. Yeah. When do the more aggressive creatures come out? Is it what season?
But you mentioned something earlier about the Icelandic witches on Christmas
yes.
Eve.
Oh
now,
yes.
Going along with that theme, and it's popped in my head. Was the Icelandic elves.
Yes.
They have actually built roads around rocks that they say the elves live it. Now, how much of it, you talk about not dismissing local, or culture.
Yes.
That is probably the biggest example of that.
And I see that somewhat also in like Ireland, like people will say like, oh, those are the old ways, but they're not going to go and cut that tree down.
Right.
They're not going to, they're going to just, okay, I was just looking, okay, let me see if I have this. I should have pulled it up. I have the list of the 12 lads of Yule that I want to read you this list. So I'll pull it up in a second because I have not memorized their names. They are hilarious names though. So I'll grab that in just a moment. But yeah, the Icelandic culture is very, very steeped in fairy and folklore. And it's not considered an outside aspect of the culture. It's considered really part of the culture. And there are stories all the time about like, well, no, you can't put a road through there. It will, you can't cut down like the fairy tree. But this, so I mean, there's something to that. There's also there's a bit of a reverence for the natural world there that I think, sure, we could say, oh, well, that's ridiculous, but hey, that's actually a really beautiful tree. So maybe we shouldn't, I mean, the reasoning might be different, but the ultimate result is, a life-giving tree that provides habitat for all manner of creatures and beastly things and provides oxygen. And so like, whether you want to say it's because you believe in fairies or you want to say it's for, ecological or environmental reasons, the end result is the same. I'm going to just pull up something from my from my documents here because I have this list. So let me go. Here we are. So in Iceland, on Christmas, so there's a Christmas witch, and she has 12 lads, the 12 Yule Lads. So I've got to pull it up because it's so her name is Grulia, and she basically lives in like some of the big mountains around, and she's kind of I like to say she's part troll, part animal, and all mother. So she's kind of a fierce, protecting goddess. And what happens is on Christmas Eve in particular, she comes down from the mountains and she looks for all the like bad kids to come down, and she'll throw them in her cauldron. So it's not unlike there's other witches around this time that or like Krampus and the Belschnickel and some other creatures that do this. They sort of like naughty children go into the cauldron or naughty children go into the sack. So
what is it with all these I don't want to call them ancient, but old lore entities. I'll just say entities because that'll encompass just about everything. Wanting to eat children. What is
I mean,
I get the witch thing. I mean, it's supposed to like boiling children.
Oh, sure. Witches are used to
fly.
Witches are used to taking the rap for all the bad things in the world. I mean, even though witchcraft is actually not a crime, it's one of the only non-crimes that people have repeatedly been murdered for. So but I mean, I think it's we have today a bit of an overlap, and I'm not a religious person. I've never actually attended church except for funerals. That's pretty much it. So I was sort of raised a heathen. But there is certainly but my mother was raised Catholic. And so there's a lot of Catholic traditions that overlap with these sort of pagan ideas or these, early ideas. And so what we have today, and I see this extensively in so I do a lot of research and reading fairy tales and folklore, and you see extensively a story when it has been sort of Christianized. So now suddenly there's a moral, and the moral is if you pray, everything's going to be okay, or the children were saved because God saved them, that sort of thing. Whereas a lot of the stories were otherwise sort of open-ended and accepted the sort of like evil gnashing nature of the world. So it's very interesting to see like different variations on that. I think that what we have in terms of like Christmas is we have this idea of this like naughty or nice. This is a time when you're supposed to be giving and you're supposed to be, grateful for everything that you have. But with a lot of the fairy creatures, like especially the ones that hang around humans, so the sort of more domestic ones, the hobgoblins, the brownies that will sort of do housework for you. And there's even a Christmas witch that does this. They'll come in and they'll clean your kitchen. They'll protect your livestock. They'll make sure everything's neat and tidy. But
Would you send me one of these that does housework?
Well, but here's the thing. This is why it doesn't work for me. Because if you're lazy and ungrateful and you don't keep up your end of the bargain, which is leaving them delicious treats and also doing your part, actually like doing a bunch of the work or working hard, then you get punished. Then they'll completely trash your house, and then they'll, pinch your children in the night. And so there are actually a lot of vengeful spirits out there. Some of them actually remind me quite a bit of poltergeist. So I think that this idea of these sort of punishing creatures sort of merged with, the church takeover of the pagan holidays. And so as a result, you had sometimes two different creatures, but also sometimes just like within, for us today, we may have in the US, the sort of very westernized version of this is the Santa who will reward. And I mean, I've never, we don't hear too many stories about Santa leaving cold. It's more of a vague threat. Parents use it this time so that the kids stay in the other room while you're wrapping the gifts, like. Speaking of children, so we have Grulia the witch, and so she has these 12 mischievous Yule Lads. And they are all associated with a different day, starting on the 12th of December. So we're coming up on their day. And the idea is that I've thought a lot about these Yule Lads, probably more than I needed to or need to, but it's very fun to think of. And each one corresponds with a different attribute. And then you were supposed to leave them offerings, but also I think if you think of it from the like disciplinary point of view, they're all doing things that you don't want the children to do as you're prepping in the winter and leading up to this feast. So I'm going to do my best. I don't speak Icelandic, which is a great sorrow for me in my life that I don't yet speak Icelandic. So I'll just read through these. So the first one.
Well, you know what, Varla, you got to read through. That's great. Can we do it in a second? We got to take our 5-minute break.
Oh yeah, let's do it after. Let's save
I think I
tore
my contact because I cannot see for crap.
So
I apologize for that, but perfect timing. We can come back with that reading.
Sounds great.
I can see when I fix my eye. Thanks for everybody for coming on in, and Varla, thanks for coming on. We will see you guys in 5 minutes. Now, of course, I had to be like text to see if I can find.
I got it, Rob.
I got it.
head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
I really love that music at the end of that text. Thanks for doing that for the 5 minute break. And so, yeah, I changed my contacts, and apparently I must have scratched my eye because it's not any better. So I apologize for those out in chat if I can't really chat it up with you. We got a great guest, Varla Ventura. We're going to get right back to what she was speaking before the 5 minute break. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. Thanks for the super chats, super stickers. Of course, it's a great way to support what we do around here. Don't forget on Mondays, this Texas Front Porch. Text, everybody. Most of you probably have subscribed, but if you're new here, Tex is getting close to 5,000 subscribers, everybody. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. Let's get there by Christmas time. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube and the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. And you know what? My buddy Duke Sullivan's out there. Subscribe to good old Duke, World Bigfoot Radio. Mondays, Texas Front Porch, 7 Central, 8 in the East. Tuesdays, Beyond BMR, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Wednesdays, The Diva Dimension, 9 Central, 10 in the East. Thursday, right back here with good old BMR and Tex. Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 12 Central, 1 in the East. Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, Thursday nights, 8 Central, 9 in the East. You get more boo. You get some woo with the booze on Fridays. Same time, Thursdays and Fridays are 8 Central, 9 in the East. Texas doing true crime with the lovely Danielle Diva. That's Saturday, 3 o'clock p.m. That would be 2 Central. Don't forget the Alabama Bigfoot Conference coming up June 7th and 8th. I got the flyer. I can't pull up nothing because I can barely see. Thanks to everybody for buying the book. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters. Leave a review when you get it on Amazon. You can find the links for all that in the chat, and we'll have links for the awesome Varla Ventura. So I'm going to get right on. There's Tex. Thanks, Tex, for that. June 7th to 24th, speaker lineup. Tex Weston is the host. Barton Nunley, Daryl Denton, Blondes and Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Mark Rose, and yours truly speaking. Aniston Performing Arts Center. Tickets are now online for $30, at the door $35. So thank you for that, Tex. I appreciate it. And we're going to get on with it and keep rolling with Tex and Varla.
Hi.
Yes.
Hey.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry everybody. You know, I don't know what's going on here, so I'm gonna have to maybe go to the eye doctor. I might have scratched my eye because I put in a new set of contacts. Still got the problem, but the show must go on with Varla Ventura.
Yeah, that happened to me once. Actually, it was horrible. I don't want to tell you what I did because it's like really gross, but
You tell me later. Yeah.
yeah.
You know.
it's like
if it was my show, we'd be, oh yeah, we got to talk about this gross stuff. Let me hear it.
Yeah. No, we can talk about like horrific beasts that carry around
the eye
whips and
beast.
chains. But if we
Yeah.
talk about ripped corneas, we're gonna lose our audience.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Right. So I'm sorry for the interruption there. I forgot to tell you about the 5-minute break.
I
interrupted
forgot. You told me actually
Well,
before the last show, and I got
Yeah,
carried away. I got
that's
excited
okay.
by the Yule Lads.
Yes. Well, you're gonna
Speaking of which,
Yeah. Speaking of which, all right. So here we've got.
yes.
All right, we've got the 12 Yule Lads of Christmas. Okay. So starting on December 12th, we have Stekjastr, and he is the sheep coat clod. Don't really know what that means. Has something to do with shepherding. Then you have, let me make this a little clearer here for myself. Then you have Gilgagur or Goligok. This is the one who appears on December 13th and preys on cows, so preys on cattle. On the 14th of December, this one's great, you have Stufur, also called Stubby. And Stubby is a pan stealer, so likes to come and steal the pan that you've probably fried something delicious in.
Huh.
Provisklurker, or the spoon licker, is December 15th. I think that one's self-explanatory, making up the Christmas cakes. Potaslicker, the pot liquor, 16th of December. Oh, it gets better.
Spoon liquor, but with a longer tongue, I would imagine.
Yes, similar to the spoon liquor. Yes, with a much longer tongue. Askaslicker, the bowl liquor, on the 17th of December.
Wait a minute, say that again.
Askaslicker.
Okay.
Yeah, I told you it gets better. It gets better. Again, my Icelandic is not,
I'm thinking, what's a lick again?
Yeah, the bowl, okay. Purosklicker, the door slammer. That's the 18th of December. Don't slam the door. You can just hear I can hear the Icelandic mother in all of these, right? Just sort of disciplining. Skyrgommer, which is the skyr gobbler, and skyr is the word for yogurt. There's actually a brand of yogurt available in the United States now that's Icelandic yogurt. So that's like the yogurt tub, and that's a huge part of the food. And if you've ever made yogurt, you do keep this tub. It's kind of like making sourdough, like you keep the or whatever the stuff active, and then you add your ingredients to it and kind of keep it going. Okay. For the 20th of December, you have, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing this right, but I'm just going to go for it. It's Bugna Cracker. And he's the sausage swiper. So look out for the sausage swiper.
A lot of these do have some undertones, I'll just say. But
isn't it marvelous? I can't. It's actually one of my life goals is to go to Iceland, and ideally at this time of year, and just like hang out and get the real scoop, and also learn how to pronounce these correctly.
Yeah.
This one's kind of creepy. This is the Glugjageger, and this is the 21st of December. This is the window peeper. Yep. And then the Gatapiffer on the 22nd of December is the door sniffer. Ketrakur on the 23rd is that's actually I think Ketrak is a meat hook that they would cure meats on, and so this guy was the meat thief. And then actually this is my favorite, and this is probably the most innocent of them all, and this is the Kurta sneaker, and that's the candle beggar on the 24th of December. So those are all of the Yule Lads. And if you think about the other thing I love about learning about these kind of creatures and stories is it actually gives you sort of a very different insight into the culture. And like, so here now we know of all the things that you're doing in the winter in Iceland. You are probably making Christmas cakes. You're trying to keep people from licking your spoons. Hey, you don't really want to pass around germs either, right? So there's some practicality to it. The door slammer, which you could also imagine with a great gust, an icy gust, and the door slams, then it's the door slammers out there. And then there's other, like, Iceland is just full of terrifying things. There's a giant black cat that roams on Christmas Eve and likes to eat children. There's the Christmas witch herself. Also, the one of the weirdest things I read was like the cat. The cat is a clothes stealer and preys in particular on people who aren't dressed. And I thought, who would go out in Iceland, of all places, on Christmas Eve? You know, I mean, is there a streaking tradition? I don't know about. Like, who would be caught outside with no clothes on? It would be so cold. So yeah. And actually, the I learned about the Yule Lads several years ago. This is like in the you just can't make this stuff up. I actually was working on my Fairies, Pukas, and Changelings book, and my son was I believe he was in 3rd grade, and I went to this like holiday like showcase or whatever. The kids had all done research papers, and there was this little girl, I think she was in 4th grade, just absolutely stone-faced, like beautiful little girl, just like totally had done this report about these Yule Lads. And I was like, can we be best friends? Like, you're such a dark child. Like, what's going on here? And so she had all of this information, and then she made some book recommendations for me, and it was pretty great.
So I was looking at the 12 Yule Lads, and they're really depicted as almost like a gnome or an elf.
Yeah,
elf-like. Well, not more of a gnome or a dwarf.
They call them trolls in a lot of the literature, but I think we have to remember that trolls. So we have this idea of trolls being these large things that live under bridges. But the word troll, and that's something that's very interesting just about sort of like folklore in general, or the different words. So like, you know, the word goblin is kind of comes from a Welsh word that sounds more like coblin, which is a word for like sort of a supernatural gnome kind of creature. But then in like what you would call a goblin, say in like Japan, is a completely different. It's evil. It lurks in the woods. It stacks up bones in its house, and is preying on people. Whereas the goblin or the hobgoblin in sort of Welsh and British folklore is a little more, a little more playful, a little more mischievous, and not necessarily as harmful. But I've got a great. Can I read you guys something, because I saw it this morning? So this is it's probably backwards to the audience, but this is Fairies, Pukas, and Changelings. So I have a very small amount of Christmas lore in here. But this was a story about, it's kind of, I call it Beware the Scandinavian Christmas Troll. And I'll just read you from this. If you don't, is that okay? If I just read this? Yeah.
Varla, go right ahead.
Yeah. Beware the Scandinavian Christmas trolls. They love to dance and drink through the night on Christmas Eve. If you are in Bavaria, take heed of the Berkte, a wretched bogey who cuts open the stomachs of naughty children. You guys are going to get banned. And you can thank me for that. And at all costs, do not walk outside alone should you ever find yourself in Greece during the 12 days of Christmas. For there lurks the most horrid beast of all, the Kalankansoroi, or the Karkansoroi, a horrid half-human, half-animal monstrosity that plays tricks and ravages households, often leaving the occupants dead. Some say it is a mortal man transformed into a beastly creature. Others say it is manifested from the supernatural beyond. In early 20th century author Clement A. Miles was a historian and amateur anthropologist. In his 1912 collection, which I've read, Christmas in Ritual and Tradition, Christian and Pagan, he writes, in the Scandinavian countries, simple folk have a vivid sense of the nearness of the supernatural on Christmas Eve. On Yule night, no one should go out, for he may meet uncanny beings of all kinds. In Sweden, the trolls are believed to celebrate Christmas Eve with dancing and revelry. Quote, on the heaths, witches and little trolls ride, one on a wolf, another on a broom or a shovel, to their assemblies, where they dance under their stones. And the mount are there to be heard mirth and music, dancing and drinking. On Christmas morn, during the time between cock crowing and daybreak, it is highly dangerous to be abroad. And of course, he goes on and on. So there's the beware the Scandinavian Christmas. I mean, there are some much more like charming, there's the Tomte and the Nisi. The Tomte are often in Finland. And those are sort of like the little, sort of more protective, but they're also very mischievous, these little trolls that are about. So in this regard, and in other examples, there are some depictions of the Scandinavian trolls as being these almost like, one description I read, if you're familiar with the description of like the Nephilim, like these like angel like goddesses or like angel like people, there's one description in a story of these Scandinavian trolls being these beautiful, tall, shimmering, ethereal beings, not at all the sort of, who's been trip-trapping on my bridge kind of troll. So it's interesting because I think it's a word thing, a language thing, more than a creature thing.
Go ahead.
When we start, and you've mentioned this a couple of times, and I really wanted to ask you about this because you're really into this lore and legend stuff. And we talked about most of it having at least a little truth based in it. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I really do. The whole Billy Goat Gruff story is actually a horrendous story if you really think about it. But where I'm just wondering what purpose that serves, because a lot of these seem to serve some kind of
yeah. So those kinds of trolls, there are creatures that protect bridges. And actually, when I was writing about like the mermaid book, I also have stuff just about like water spirits and stuff. And so I believe that those, and I honestly, I think this about Bigfoot too. I think they're actually protectors. And I think just as there are poisonous berries and things that make you itch on the edge of the forest to keep you out, there are certain creatures whose job it is to protect something of the natural world. And so I do think that the reason we have that association with the troll under the bridge is that it's really probably a water spirit that is protecting the river and protecting the bridge as a result. But we also have things that are built into architecture for protection, such as gargoyles, all kinds of symbols and creatures and various winged things that are worked into architecture, medieval architecture especially. And sometimes those do serve to protect. I was at a castle in Ireland a couple years ago, and the guy was giving me a tour, and he said, I'm going to show you something, but you got to understand that what the purpose was of it. And he said that, yes, like people would put gargoyles and things, the idea was to put something so horrific, it was so hideous and terrifying that anything evil would just be like so freaked out they would turn around and leave. And so this particular image is of, there's some cavorting happening, and it's not just humans. So that's all I'll say. But it's a way to sort of like, whoa, if I saw that, I don't think I'm going to go through that door,
I got to ask you, Varla, because like Texas brought up, and I believe, and we've talked about this before, Varla, there's always some influence when you talk about folklore or lore. There's some truth behind a lot of these. I don't care what you're talking about, werewolves or anything, or pukas. You mentioned that in one of your books, and all these things. That there's some truth behind a lot of the folklore, right? Where it
Yeah.
came from somewhere. And Tex and I did a show. I think it was I was with Tex. We had Robin Moonshadow on, and we talked a lot about the little people.
Yeah.
And we talked, especially toward the end of the show, I believe it was about gnomes. And I had asked her, now, Varla, whatever your belief is, we'll find out here in a minute. I had asked, okay, I heard that if I had a bunch of gnomes in my garden, that it would attract the actual gnomes, right? And I could maybe catch them running about your garden or around your yard or what have you. And she's an avid believer. Yes, she has seen them. So I question you is this: after that show, Tex, Varla, everyone listening, you know what good old BMR did? I went and bought a bunch of Christmas gnomes, right? And I, as an experiment, and I set a special area outside and in the house, and I brought them in, and I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the gnomes. So, what's your thought on that? Have you heard such a story and your beliefs in that?
So with those sweet little Christmas gnomes, or the tomte, or the nisi, the those little Scandinavian sort of little trolls and things, I think that they were actually welcomed into the home, and they were put out as guardians. And so I think of like the cement garden gnomes. The way I think of those are like the same way that you might put, a statue of Mary somewhere in your house if you believed in the Virgin Mary, right? So they sort of have become a representation of a belief, a representation, and therefore imbue sort of some of that guardianship. But I absolutely think that by putting those things, you do sort of signal to the supernatural world, hey, I'm gnome friendly. This is a gnome friendly house.
It's
absolutely
a gnome friendly zone.
But even more so beyond that, like with any kind of magic, an offering and intent are the most important things.
Yeah.
So if you really do want to attract fairies or gnomes to your house, or you want these helpful entities to come in and help you find your keys and sweep your hearth, you need to give them an offering. And do you know what our most commonly known offering is? We still do it. We do it all. Many of us do it on Christmas Eve to the greatest elf of them all, right? Milk and cookies. Yeah, although in France, I've heard they leave wine, so that's nice. Oh. But that is actually a traditional offering for many of these all year round to leave. Outside in gardens, fairies do tend to like magical, shiny things. So crystals and keys, and if you've got only one earring left in a set, that's something that you can leave. But offerings of food, just like with any kind of magic, leaving an offering to a sort of supernatural or invisible being, cakes, and also don't leave scraps. Like, don't just put your leftovers. It has to have like some intention to it. So if you do have an area and you're waiting for them to come, consider making an offering, leaving a gift. It doesn't have to be food. Food is often welcome, but it can be something that is of sincere, something sincere that you leave behind. And that combined with the signal of like, hey, this is a gnome friendly house, then I'm betting if you leave a nice fat offering, you will probably see something as a result.
Yeah, I was really intrigued, with that, to be honest with you, because this text always says, Rob, you believe in everything, but I kind of do. And
I kind of do too, Rob.
I do. And I only can say that, But I gotta tell you, and Tex knows this, and Tex himself has seen things. I've seen so many weird things in my life that I'm open to just about anything,
Right.
unless it was something like, I can't even go where I was just going to go because I just don't know about. I think
I know,
anything's
right?
possible.
Like you can't go
I-
mermaids because
No,
we pull
and
weird things out of the sea all the time.
we
So
do. And the sea, that's just another topic. There's so much that we don't know about the sea.
yeah,
Everyone talks about outer space and UFOs and aliens. Okay, fine and dandy. I'm into it. I like it. But to me, what's more intriguing and perhaps even more scary is what does lurk in our sea, the Great Lakes, for example.
oh
The
yeah,
ocean. There's a lot. I've talked many ad nauseum. Tex knows the Great Lakes, the most haunted part of the country is right
hmm
smack dab where I live, and I'm right in the middle of them all.
yeah, oh yeah. Oh, they just found a new shipwreck recently with like, um, I think was it in Lake Michigan? There was just a shipwreck found like last week or something. I read an article about another Great Lakes shipwreck. And then there's the absence of salt and the way that the things are preserved is like deeply terrifying, but like also amazing. Yeah. Well, and like Lake Superior
It's
is
an
an
inland
ocean.
sea. It's an inland sea. Yes,
Oh
it
yeah.
is.
Oh yeah. There's there about I can go about 2 hours to get there, and there's a hotel that I have stayed at that I always, even in the winter, winter it's frozen, but all the other shoulder seasons and stuff, I keep the window open because I grew up, I lived most of my life in San Francisco, so the sound of the ocean is kind of this like really, I mean, it's a very calming thing for most
Yeah.
people, but
Mhm.
you can be on the shore of Lake Superior and completely have that same experience, because it actually produces insanely huge waves. So yeah, that is a
Well,
haunted
there are
place.
insanely huge waves on Lake Superior. I can't tell from experience. I've been to Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie. Those are the three I've been on, right? Lake Superior, I've been there, but not on it, right?
Out on it, yeah.
And they've got 30, 40-foot waves at times.
Oh
They suck
yeah,
you up. And
yeah, it's crazy.
one of the strangest stories in the state of Michigan or the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, is the sinking of the El Fitzgerald, right?
Yes. Yeah,
That's
the
a
Edmund Fitzgerald.
mystery.
Yeah. The so if you go up around Lake Superior, there's something called the Lake Superior Circle Tour. And I
Mhm.
did this years ago. I didn't do the full circle tour, but if you go up from if you know where Marquette is, which is kind of in the middle of the Upper Peninsula, well, I don't know if it's the middle, but it's the middle of one of the parts. And you keep going and you go to, you have Sault Ste. Marie, and then you have Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, just over a little, small bridge. You keep going, and there's a little part where you can go to see some petroglyphs. And you kind of have to climb down on the side of Lake Superior to get to these petroglyphs. But one of the petroglyphs is of Gitchagummy, which is this massive, long, spiked tail, very creepy looking creature that is painted. I mean, these are like ancient petroglyphs, and it's depicting this monster that has a long spiky tail, and it was thought that tail would come lashing down and it would create the big storms that would then cause the 40-foot waves and shipwrecks and all that.
Well, a lot of the if I may be wrong here, but the indigenous name for Lake Superior is what you just said.
Gitchagummy. Yeah.
And I learned that by listening to the record.
Yes, Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Big lake they call Gitchagummy.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. As a kid growing up, we heard Gordon Lightfoot and that song, right? And as a kid, I heard it and I liked it. I think most people like the song. I don't care what your genre of music is. And then it wasn't even until too long ago, and I'll be honest, where I started listening to the actual lyrics. Because when I grew up as a kid,
Yeah.
everybody, I listened to the drums, the guitar. I didn't really give two craps about what the singer was singing until
Yeah.
you get older, and then you realize that music is an art, and so you listen to the lyrics. And now today, I have a much greater appreciation for that song because I listen to the lyrics, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it tells an incredible story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and there's stories of northern Lake Superior. I think it's out by Thunder Bay, if I'm not mistaken, or one of those bays where the indigenous they talk about the legendary monster of Lake Superior, and there's an indigenous name for it, but where it would come up and it would literally attack the canoes of the Indians going and eat the Indians. And I forget the name of the alleged creature, but it's in all of this folklore and lore
Hmm.
about Lake Superior. But anywhere you go, Lake Superior supposedly has an alien base. There's the I know for a fact that there
I think the
are
water might be a little too clean for that.
yeah, because you can
Or
see
maybe
straight
that's what's
from
keeping it clean. It could,
or
I mean,
maybe it's beneath, but
who
you
am
ever
I to draw the line in the sand?
but you know what they're saying too about Lake Superior? And it's what they said. First of all, you can fit 5 Lake Eries and 2 Lake Ontarios inside of Lake Superior. They said if Lake Superior alone flooded and was dispersed about the United States, the entire North America and South America, everybody could be covered. It will cover 1 foot of water on the
Amazing.
top of our land. You look at Lake Superior, you
Yeah.
would not think that could cover 2 land masses up to 1 foot of water.
It's
They say,
really deep
and they cannot
and
even
really
tell you
wide.
it's really deep and wide, and I guess it is the deepest Great Lake. But I was reading something. I think it was Scientific American Journal or something. They believe, okay, get this, okay, from their investigations or research. Now there's a floor. I don't know. Let's say 20,000 feet deep. That's just I'm making the number up. I don't know what the number is, but they say that there's a layer beneath at the deepest point of Lake Superior. That there is a layer at the bottom. There is a layer of water and another sea beneath it.
What?
Yeah,
That's
I read that like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
well, it
Thank you,
starts you thinking about like
Thank you, Be Kind.
lake monsters and we've got Nessie, we've got all kinds of monsters in that's so nice. Really living the name Be Kind there. Yeah.
Yeah, Be Kind is
He
awesome.
does.
But there's Lake Tahoe has a sea monster, or I guess it's not a sea monster, it's a lake monster. There's Champion, Lake Champlain. There's just so many of them, and it does start you wondering, like, is there actually like this underground, this underground network that they can swim between or something? I mean, like, who are we to say? But
Well,
actually,
the one in Lake Superior, is actually called Pessy.
oh, Pessy.
Pessy. Instead of
Okay.
Nessie, it's Pessy.
Oh, Pessy. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And Champy is in Lake Champlain. And then there's one in there's a couple in Washington State. The Tahoe one, I just completely forgot the name of the Tahoe one. I was just reading about it like 2 days ago. And then actually I was in Scotland in April, and I think I was there, like I was actually on Loch
I'm really
Ness.
jealous of you right now. I just want you to know that.
Oh, it was so much fun. Oh, it's one of the best trips of my life. But I was on Loch Ness, and I want to say I was there on the 4th of April. Maybe it was the 5th of April. And I swear to you, there were, like, on the 6th of April, there was a Loch Ness sighting. And then on the 7th, there was another one. And then a week later, there was another one. And there's these webcams that kind of like monitor it constantly. And there are all of these people who look at those all the time and watch the live feed and look for some things. And actually, I just saw another one recently that is very hard to understand what else it could be beyond some sort of like long snaky monster. But I missed it by a day, maybe it was looking for me and my friend. We were too busy, like, drinking ciders by the castle there to notice the monster.
But that is amazing about, the Great Lakes and these oceans, all of these monsters, right, that we hear about, whether it's folklore or legend, people, the alleged sightings. It's just really fascinating. And, and I'd imagine up in Minnesota, as well as around Michigan, all these haunted and abandoned, I got one right over here. Oh gosh, it slips my mind. The light towers, what do you call them? Lighthouses.
Lighthouses. Oh,
there's so
there's
many.
nothing like an abandoned lighthouse. That is just
man,
like the stuff of nightmares. It's so marvelous. I would absolutely. So there's you can go on like has like one of the US government sites, and they have like all these weird places that you can buy, but you have to be able to actually maintain them. And a couple years ago, there was some sort of like totally rotting, rusty lighthouse that was it was one of the Great Lakes. I don't think it was Lake Superior, but it was one of the Great Lakes. And you could buy it and you could own it. It was your own little island, but it's on you to get your supplies out there. It's on you to, if you want to retile the bathroom, forget it. It's going to be, you're going to be using Lake Superior slate or something. But I always think like, oh gosh, that's on my bucket list to like own an abandoned lighthouse.
There's something you have to look up, and I don't know how to spell it. Urich or Urich, something like that, lighthouse of Lake Michigan. And this has been up for many, many, many years, maybe a century. I don't know how long. And there was a shipwreck, again, on Lake Michigan, where right around this lighthouse. And I think like something.
Oh, I think I have a haunted. I think I have a haunted Michigan book. So
okay, yeah. So 40 or 50 men left their lives. Crew lost their lives, and there was a specific date. Whatever the date was, again, slips my mind, but it was during, I believe, the fall. And the lighthouse has since gone abandoned. It's not been in function for years, but the structure still stands. And according to what people have reported on the specific date of the actual event is the only time you can see a flickering of the lighthouse in the distance.
Ooh. That's so great.
I mean, I like that's.
I love those kind of like, if you could make a calendar, it would be like a travel calendar. It was like, okay, be here on this date because that's when, all of the knights on their ghost horses come traveling through this property. And then on this date, be here because that's and it's usually like an anniversary of some kind of big, I say it with such glee, but some sort of horrific thing, like a fire that killed all the people, or a big storm, or a shipwreck, or.
And there's another cool story. In fact, I put this in my book. Actually, it's again on Lake Michigan, and it's a lighthouse. It's out there. It's never functional. Occasionally, it does flicker on. So if you catch it at a certain night when the moon is high and you're at the beach, and the light comes on from the lighthouse in the distance. It's like a buoy, not a lighthouse, but a buoy that's out there as a marker. It's like a channel marker for ships, but it's not one you can rely on, again, because of the faulty lighting, right? But they say if you're there at the right time during a certain time of the year when the moon is high and the light flickers, you can see apparitions literally coming from Lake Michigan onto the shoreline and prancing about the beach.
And it's not always Halloween.
Yes,
right. It's right. Like, you can find these events year round.
You can.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look long and hard, you can find anything that you're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could have a calendar of on this day. A page a day supernatural calendar. We might be onto something here.
You know what?
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Well, great minds think alike. Yeah. Hell, just the other day I was looking. I published my book on Amazon, so they send me all this marketing material. Hey, Rob, all you got to do is put out a calendar, a blank calendar, and charge $8 and and put it on Amazon and charge $4 and make money on a blank calendar. I said, well, I'm not really that guy.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It would be cool if you did a calendar though that had like similar images to your cover, like that kind of like style, or just different Bigfoot images, and then you had significant encounters, or like you could be like the birthday of somebody who was the first person to write about, you know, like you could have things like that in there, and then it wouldn't be, then it could be a wall calendar that people who love Bigfoot would have, but it also would have a little bit of extra lore in there, and you could have like a couple stories from your book. And now that I think is well worth $8. That's probably worth $12.
Actually, great idea. And who actually
do it, because it's almost 2024. You better get on it.
And that's a great idea. No, and who has a Bigfoot calendar?
Yeah. I mean, I'd buy a Bigfoot calendar, and I bet a lot of people listening right now are going like, yes, please do that. You know, get on it, Rob. We want that.
Yeah. Amongst the other things I have going on, on top of that, before January 1st.
Yeah. It does involve, actually, I have worked on some of those, like the book of the Bazaar. We did a little bit of like, we didn't do a calendar with it, but that there was talk of it, and like trying to come up with something. Don't try and come up with something every day. Just try and come up with something. You know, put your own birthday on it.
But you know what, Tex? I just came up. Thank you, Varla. I just came up with an idea. I know Tex pretty well now. He's thinking this. We got to have our own show calendars, right? Right? Yeah. There we go. We can sell it on Amazon. There you go.
Well, you know, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. It is. But I wouldn't feel right doing it.
Yeah, well.
Because I would feel like, well, damn, we got to pay Varla royalties because.
Oh, come on. It's $1 million idea you can have for free. Just remember me.
Well, I will always remember Varla.
Well, we'd have to put her birthday on the calendar.
Yeah, put my birthday on there.
And she could be Varla could be the centerfold. There we go.
Yeah.
Posing with a very large furry beast.
There you go.
That took a turn. Well,
yeah, you know. I guess that's, you know, a perfect segue into Varla. Where can we find you? And for people, because the people do love you, Varla. I love you.
That's so nice. Thank you.
So I'm gonna have you back every 2-3 months. You guys,
I love that. Yeah, you guys are wonderful to talk to.
Tex will be. I don't know how Tex will say it. Pulling your curtain. Come on, Texas front porch, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know how he talks. You know.
Yes, feel free to share my contact information with text, however, or with text, however you'd like. Yeah. Yes, you can find. Just look on my website. It's varlaventura.net. And I'm on some of the socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. That's pretty much it. And I'm terrible at social media, so not a great way to contact me, although you know, you can always try, but by and large, that's where Facebook is where I usually put like what events I'm doing or what's coming up. But my website, I need to kind of get on there and update some things, but you can find varlaventura.net. And then I recently launched a like storytelling podcast series called Midnight Stories with Varla Ventura. And I actually had the other one ready to record, but there's, as you have heard, I need to do it at night because there's a lot of day sounds right now. But that's cute. So that the first one is about a woman who you didn't do that?
No.
Because did you see me going like this? I thought you did it because I was from.
Oh my Lord.
Weird.
I
weird.
Cool,
if anyone's just listening but not watching, a ghostly thumbs up just appeared.
That is wild.
I've never seen that happen before.
No, never. We text control anything. Nobody can do that.
Well, it
Except
wasn't
your
me.
time.
I didn't touch anything.
I wouldn't even
I'm
know how to
actually
do
sitting
that.
on my hands, so I don't touch
That is
anything.
like, wow, man. We had just a paranormal.
And I was totally like thumbs upping. That's
Yes,
so
you were.
strange. Oh well, see, there's your evidence, folks.
You guys,
Put that
look.
on the calendar.
And you know what's funny, Varla? At the beginning of the show, we mentioned that sometimes strange things happen.
You
It's
did.
I did mostly on the Blondes and Booze, not so much with me and Tex and this
There we
other friend
go.
of ours. But we mentioned it. You know
And
what
there
we
it
did?
happened.
We manifested something right there,
Yeah.
and I believe
We
in that.
manifested a ghost
Yes,
bubble thumbs up.
we did.
That was
No,
I thought you were
everybody.
doing that because I was going,
No,
"Ee."
hey,
I thought you were
everybody listening. We
I was
did
like,
not do that.
No.
oh,
You can't do that. It's impossible to do.
you don't even know what it is.
Hi,
But
nickname.
something approved. Okay, so yeah, Midnight Stories, Varla Ventura. There's
Wow.
there's one there. I'm recording another one. They are who knows what it'll be in the future, but right now they're stories of like tremendous women of the paranormal who have done outrageous things. The one out now, it's called Books Are Feeders for Brothels. And I'll just let that be the teaser, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely a teaser.
It's a cool story. Yeah.
Well, it's always a cool show. I'm so glad that we become friends when you come on
Yeah,
the show.
me too. Thank you for
and
having me
stuff like
again. I
that.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll have you again. I'll have Tex on before me, of course. I'm sure Tex is got some plans for you. I do as well down the road, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And actually, hey, Varla, it worked out. Hardly no
Yeah,
thumping in the
Not
background.
not too loud, and they're just starting to tap again.
It's just now starting to
I
tap.
gotta say, it's amazing though. These two guys have been working on my house, and they don't use a nail gun. They use a real hammer.
Now that is, I tell you what, that is.
I'm
that
like,
is-
wow, okay, cool.
yeah,
We know those nails will stay in place. So
they will.
Okay, so I was just real quick before we jet.
Yeah,
I was just looking to see if I could do that
yeah.
on StreamYard. There's no
No,
option to do that
I'm gonna
anywhere.
like go back and like mark what minute that was at and look, but
we're gonna have to look back because
Yeah.
I'm using one eye today, and I'm technologically inept anyway. Couldn't figure out how to do that. So everybody listening, what just happened in Varla, we didn't create that. Don't know how that happened.
I don't know what. Yes, I have no. I didn't. I'm just sitting here with headphones.
Yeah,
I'm far away from my keyboard. I sit on my hands
Hey,
a lot during interviews
listen,
because I talk with my hands.
I've
So.
I've seen you a million times on Space Cell Radio. Nothing like that's ever happened. You didn't do it. Tex didn't do it. I didn't do it, but something
Did that.
Right. Wow.
Bing. All right. Bing.
Hey, Varla, fascinating show. If you want to stay on for a couple of minutes, or if you have to go, that's fine. Tex probably wants to talk with you. Other than that, I love you. Thanks for the
Thank
show.
you.
Thanks for
Love you
everybody
too.
coming. Be kind. Thank you for great for the super chat. Subscribe to look out Varla. I'll drop the links. Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, the Bonds, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast, live every night on YouTube. Till next time, we're out.